It is time now for our weekly partnership segment with The Lever, and we have some great reporting to bring you this week from Andrew Perez. Great to see you, Andrew.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So I'll set up a little bit of the backstory here, and then I want you to dig into what you found. So the audience probably remember there was a big story that broke about shortly after the Dobbs decision, a 10-year-old child who had been raped in Ohio who had to travel across state lines into Indiana in order to receive the care that she needed, an abortion in that state, which I think at this point Indiana has now passed laws that probably make that not possible, but we'll put that aside. There was immediately some questioning of this claim, especially in right-wing circles. But this became sort of a mainstream questioning when Glenn Kessler, who is the fact checker at the Washington Post, wrote a whole column calling into doubt whether this account was actually correct. You have found some details. Now, the account did ultimately turn out to be correct. The man who raped her, or at least allegedly raped her, has been arrested, and it has been confirmed at this point. So they had to backtrack and essentially retract his column, add corrections to it. But you actually found that from the beginning, he was not being straightforward about the information that he had. Can you lay that out for us, Andrew? And we have your tear sheet. Let's go ahead and put that up on the screen, too. The headline here is emails raise questions about Washington Post fact checker. The Post corrected Glenn Kessler's column questioning reporting about a child rape victim shortly after the Lever obtained emails showing inaccuracies. Dig into what you found here, Andrew.
Sure. So, this week we fact-checked the fact checker. And so Glenn Kessler's column originally claimed that none of the county officials he had contacted had ever heard of this child's case in their area. When the news broke that a man had been arrested for committing the crime, Glenn updated his column to say that unlike similar Ohio county agencies they had contacted, Franklin County officials did not offer a response. So we actually went to Franklin County officials and asked for their correspondence with Kessler. And what we found was that his statements about this just were not accurate. They actually had responded to him pretty quickly before his column was published. And they told him they wouldn't be able to they wouldn't be able to discuss specific cases because of confidentiality restrictions under Ohio law. And so, the impression that he gave in the piece was wrong. We reached out to the Post, both to him and a spokesperson. They corrected the piece. But, I do think there is an open question of, why this column was ever published. When it fed into this conservative media firestorm, about a case that, it turns out was fully accurate, but, he was never going to be able to raise any significant questions through this reporting process. It seemed like all he did was contact a few child services agencies and the governor's spokesperson and ask, like, hey, have you heard of this? That's not, that doesn't really pass any kind of muster compared to like the actual reporting that went into the Indianapolis Star story.
Yeah, well, and it's two very different things saying we can't comment on any cases we have versus, no, we've never heard of this. I mean, that's just a totally different representation of the facts ultimately.
Yeah, 100%. And in fact, we reached out to another county and they told them they had not heard of this case, but they also said they wouldn't be able to discuss it anyway. So there is like a distinction between how the agencies responded, but we know the Franklin agency actually had told him they wouldn't be able to discuss specific cases. That's the agency that actually made the criminal referral to the police that led to the arrest here.
Has there been any sort of additional accountability or disciplining of Kessler from the Post since he got this story wrong in a really significant way?
Yeah, not that we can tell. They updated the Post. They issued a correction on it, but he's still fact checking. He's fact checking the news still today, and there's been no kind of like apology here at all. There were other kind of significant issues in his piece too. Like he had originally written that it's really rare for people under the age of 15 to get abortions in Ohio. And he said it happens like 50 times a year, which literally means like once a week. It's not rare. It's not rare at all. And if you were to broaden that out like over the throughout the nation, you have to imagine the numbers are substantially higher. So I think there's an open question as to how this piece was conceived, why it happened, why it was written the way they did, and what they thought they were going to be able to prove through through the process that he undertook.
Yeah, I guess that's the other question is, it's not like he really got any sort of reporting that actually undercut the story. So, there's a question of sort of the editing process too, of who allowed this to go forward when there really was nothing here substantial that you could hang your hat on to undercut the initial reporting.
Yeah. It seems like his central complaint was that the story was based on the word of one doctor, the doctor who had performed the abortion. And he was sort of saying it like that she claims to have done this. And then, we saw that in emails that she claims to have performed the procedure. And then he mentioned in an exchange with Neiman Lab that, that the only source here was an activist in one side of the debate. So, it clearly betrays like some type of bias towards, I guess, abortion providers. And, I do think that, the standards, the editorial standards here, like would have probably flown at any paper, right? You're talking about a story that was based on a doctor's word, like who was on the record by name,
Right.
and who really subjected themselves to a pretty giant, media controversy just by doing that, by going on the record, sharing this story.
Yeah, that is really true. I mean, it would be quite something for them under their own name to have just invented this out of whole cloth, which is what Kessler was effectively suggesting here. The last part of this that I think is interesting, Andrew, is were there any other outlets that after Kessler's piece was basically, kind of fell apart and wasn't correct, that dug into the details to see whether he was representing correctly the information that he was received, since it ended up being directly rebutted by, the fact that this rapist was arrested?
Yeah, not as far as I know, and I'm not sure that anyone went through the steps of filing public records requests to these agencies. But you know what? It took me like 5 minutes, and it came back really quickly. Honestly, it came back
Wow.
in a matter of a week. So, and we've gone to some of the other county agencies now. We haven't seen any record of any other correspondence with those agencies. We broadened our request to go from from the beginning of July to August 9th. And so, as far as I know, we're the only people that have been digging into this at all.
Well, I think that says a lot as well, and is why we're so proud to partner with you guys, and why, for those of you who are able to support The Lever, you absolutely should do so, because you are focusing on stories that the corporate media is not paying attention to. Andrew, it's always great to see you. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. And thank you guys for watching. We will have more for you later. Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing, and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.